Hey guys, welcome to the Making Strides podcast. This is episode 1. Today, Adam and I are going to be talking a little bit about our backgrounds and also just our intentions for this podcast and how we want it to be a resource for runners. So stay tuned and hope you enjoy. Welcome to Making Strides, a podcast aimed at empowering and educating runners. Our goal is to help decipher misinformation in the running world that can lead runners off their path to progress. With an evidence-guided approach, this podcast aims to give runners the resources they need to foster healthy, lifelong running from track to trail. I'm AJ Cohen.
And I'm Adam Schwert. Let's make some strides.
Hey guys, welcome to the Making Strides podcast. So we just wanted to take this first episode to introduce ourselves, to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what we wanted to accomplish and what kind of holes in the kind of podcast world we wanted to fill in terms of being a resource for runners. And so my name's AJ, and I'm here with Adam. And so, Adam, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you think this podcast might be a little bit different than some of the other podcasts that maybe you're familiar with. And I know there's just so many podcasts about running nowadays, right? Whether you're a PT looking to expand your knowledge on running, or you're a runner who's looking for information, how is this podcast going to be different than what's already out there?
Yeah, that is a great question. Somebody actually had an interesting post on a Facebook group that both of us are part of, actually, in regards to podcasts that are geared not towards the coach, not towards the clinician who is managing and working with runners, but for the everyday runner. And, I was going through my own podcast thinking I would have something to offer, and all of them really, get a little too deep in the woods, probably, or too deep in the weeds, that's the right saying, for your everyday runner. So I think that's where we kind of came up with that idea to try to formulate a platform for the everyday runner with actionable advice that is kind of based on some of those very in-depth details of the science around running, but make it to where, they can understand it, they can use it.
Yeah, totally. I think that's awesome. I think that a lot of times, the average runner doesn't know how to look at science or literature, how to read a research paper. I mean, even a lot of healthcare professionals out there don't know how to read a research paper properly. But, I do think that we both have put a focus on trying to read and understand the literature when it comes to working with runners. And I think we also both pride ourselves in trying to translate that information down into something that's digestible and understandable for runners. And a lot of the time, it really is a lot different than what other runners have been told and what they read in these articles online that are not, that's not peer-reviewed research. So Runner's World articles or active.com articles or whatever, and what their friend who's an accountant but happens to be a good runner tells them, or whatever, you know what I mean? So we just want to try and I really see this podcast as being a way that runners can get the right answers for these questions that they are so often getting the wrong answers for. And quite frankly, just like it says in our description, are leading them off their path to progress. Sometimes the advice that a runner gets can be benign in the sense that, like, oh, you should be foam rolling your quads because your quads are tight, right? Like, we know that that's probably not the whole picture, right? That's probably not like exactly what that runner needs, but it's probably not doing them too much harm, right? But then again, maybe you have a situation where somebody has a high-risk bone stress injury and somebody who they're working with misses it or gives them the wrong advice, and then those consequences could be huge. Or somebody who, even like in a kind of converse situation where somebody has some mild, stable tendon-related pain, and they're told to just rest until it goes away, right? Like this type of advice is somewhat harmful to these patients, and it really does lead them off their optimal path of progress. And so there's just so much confusion, and I really hope that we can help runners just be a little bit better guided and better informed when it comes to just all of the misinformation out there. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but that's just kind of my mission for this podcast.
That was perfect.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of bullets for this episode. We definitely wanted to give you guys an idea of what our philosophy is, which we kind of just did. Adam, why don't you tell us a little bit of your background, give us a minute or two, and describe academically where you're kind of coming from, what your background is, and then from a running background perspective, like what kind of runner are you?
Yeah. So I went to Maryville University in St. Louis, and their PT program is what you would call like a freshman entry. So right out of high school, you're accepted into the PT program, and you get your bachelor's in health science in that program, as well as your doctorate 6 years later. So that's 6 years total, by the way, not like got my bachelor's and then another 6 years. If anybody's wondering, it's technically 6.5 years. And I ran there while I did cross country and track while there, and then also ran in high school. So, and then continued to run pretty competitively with a focus really on like 5K, 1500, more track oriented, is where I really love to compete at, but have dabbled in the.
So repeat just like your last sentence. I missed you. I missed the last sentence.
Okay, and then I've dabbled as high as the half marathon as far as distance, which really kind of pulls on me a little bit because I'm right on the verge of a threshold. I've run 2 and fell just short of it both times. So maybe we'll see some more of that in the future here. But I think that pretty much sums up kind of my background. How about you, AJ? Why don't you share with our listeners, if we have any yet, what's your background?
So, what initially got me wanting to do PT is I was a wrestler in high school. I tore my ulnar collateral ligament in my elbow, just popped kind of in the middle of a match. That was fun. And so I got some rehab. They gave me a job, and so I wanted to do PT. Went to Sacred Heart University, where I did a very similar accelerated program where we did our undergrad in 3 years, and then we did 3 years of the PT program after that. And so did that at Sacred Heart University. My bachelor's was in exercise science. And so, I got right out of school, and I just wanted to move to Colorado and move to the mountains, and that was like priority number one. So I got out here, I literally could not find a job in a setting that I really wanted to work in. I wanted to work in a hospital initially. When I first wanted to be a PT, I wanted to work in orthopedic outpatient, but I had a bad clinical experience that turned me off to that whole setting. But that was before I discovered that I could start my own business and kind of treat patients the way I want to with the quality that I want to. And so it wasn't until I noticed that a couple years out of school, 4 years out of school, that I finally realized that I wasn't really filling this gap in my soul and my heart of wanting to work with active adults and athletes and runners. And so I was, for the first 4 years out of school, working in a bunch of different rehab facilities until I finally decided to start my business, which is Up and Running Physical Therapy, which I treat runners, and like 90% of who I see are runners. But anyway, so from a running background perspective, it's been kind of weird. I've always run training for other sports. I've wrestled Division I, AAA, whatever, like not the greatest team ever, but and I went from being one of the best wrestlers in high school to one of the worst on my college team. And everyone on the college team was like, the coach would be like, "Oh, you guys need to do cardio or whatever. Go run to my house and back," which is like 6 miles round trip. And I was like by far the best runner on the wrestling team. And so they would all make fun of me and be like, "AJ, you should quit and join the track team or whatever." And, but never did. But my dad, unfortunately, he surprisingly he passed away unexpectedly. And he was a big runner. And a friend of his had set up doing like a half marathon as a tribute to him. And it was a kind of hilly course in New Hampshire. I ran 3 days a week for 4 weeks, and then I ran a 136. And I was like probably 15 pounds heavier than I am now. And so I was like, well, I'm not that bad at this. So I like started running more, tried to do some really stupid things with changing my foot strike pattern and wearing minimalist shoes, and got some pretty significant like arch navicular pain, and quit and then went into Olympic style competitive weightlifting for 2 years instead. But then after that, this is now like 7 years ago now, I moved out to Colorado, got into trail and ultra type stuff. And so I think my wheelhouse and what I do best in is trail marathon to 50K. But I've attempted 100 miles, which I had to drop out of at mile 75, but and because of some interesting life choices, which have worked out really well, I haven't been able to try another 100 miler, but that's my goal. So to do that next year, probably. Cool. So Adam, why don't you tell us, well, why don't you start by just giving us a success story? Like, give us a really quick recap on like a patient situation that went really well, like just a quick one there, and then maybe one that didn't go so well, and how you might have used that to your kind of learning advantage.
Yeah. Actually, my success story is actually a non-running individual, really non-fit individual at all. Just kind of came in with a, vague low back pain, scared to do anything and everything. And to shed light on how severe that fear was, when I asked her really to do anything for the first time, like the first time I had her squat, just body weight, I think it was probably like just 5 times or something like that, she cried. Anytime we did any kind of progression or inserted something new, she would kind of tear up a little bit, freak out about it. So that was, but in the end, she got better, was so thankful. Probably one of those cases that just really stand out for me, because it just took so much reassurance, so much communication that like there's nothing serious going on. Like we're just going to slowly progress back into more and more demanding things. And, I don't know, that was just, because that was in the first, I was maybe like 6 months out of school. So to have a patient like that is like really eye-opening and almost kind of nerve-wracking as that new or that green of a clinician. Fast forward like another year, and I actually had a runner, super excited to get them. I was really getting into some of the running specific stuff as far as the literature and different courses and such. And she had some vague, and AJ, you'll probably pick up on this as I describe like what I should have done. But she had this really vague hip pain that was kind of more front of the hip, more so than anything, but like I couldn't reproduce it. It was really only when she would unweight, like she could even tolerate hopping, but as soon as she stopped hopping, kind of unweighted, that was her pain. She had this limp that wouldn't go away. After a few visits, we did pretty good managing the pain, but the limp wouldn't go away. Come to find out, some weeks down the road, she went back to the doctor, got an x-ray or an MRI or some sort of imaging, and it was a stress fracture of the proximal femur. So that one kind of hurt me a little bit. But now I know better. So won't be missing any more of those. Or so I hope at least.
Yeah, totally. I might as well start with that part of, so I'll give you guys a success story in a minute, but so we've all had that scenario, and I know, we have colleagues that we learn from on a frequent basis, and they talk about how they've missed similar things in the past and how it really just amplifies their passion for trying to really prevent stuff like that from happening in the future. And I totally understand that. And I've been there too. So this one gal in particular, was working with her a couple of times for some like posterior shin type stuff. And same thing, her presentation was really vague, and she really was kind of presenting like a posterior tib type thing. Yeah, long story short is it ended up being a stress fracture, and you know, it is what it is. But you know, really, we were looking for that the whole time, but we did not, I guess, proceed with as much caution as I would have now, or taken at least some steps to really make sure that what we were doing was the safest and best choice. But you know, it comes with the territory a little bit, and now we know more than ever what to look for and the potential consequences of missing certain things like that. So yeah, very similar. But anyway, just a success story. I don't really know if I have one in particular, but I have a ton is what I meant to say. But I just get a lot of people, and I get so happy, and I get so I don't know, whatever. I feel so fulfilled when I have somebody who comes in and they've just been struggling with something for so long. I have plantar fasciitis or something like that. I've tried everything. I don't know what's going to be any different here. And I'm like, and they're like, I've tried the ice. I've tried icing it with a water bottle and rolling the water bottle on it and stretching and foam rolling. And I've tried strengthening my glutes, and I've tried doing this and doing that, and e-stim and ultrasound and dry needling. And I'm like, well, did you try progressively loading and strengthening it over time, and like slowly increasing your running related loads as well? And they're like, no, those things hurt. And I'm like, okay, but has anybody ever really sat down with you and tried to strategize what you're feeling, what that means, and just trying to challenge things and monitor things over time and seeing what they do over time? And people, you know, a lot of times they're like, no, nobody's ever done that. I'm actually quite apprehensive about doing that. But, you know, this is not the exact conversation, but anytime I get somebody to buy in to a program where we can, quote unquote, load it up, you know, in a strategical way, get somebody back to a running program of some kind, and just over time slowly increase their tolerance, it just, I don't know. And then just seeing their face when we start to like get them at a follow-up, and they're like telling me all the ways that they're seeing like these little bits of improvement, and then like looking back at it from like a 1 to 3 month perspective or something like that, and being like you did it, like now you're there. Especially when it's been like a 1 or 2 year type journey for them. Anytime that happens is super rewarding. So Adam, I know you wanted to kind of be done by a certain time. Did you want to skip the cringe stories, or do them real quick, or what do you want to do?
Let's skip it.
Okay.
I want to review this woman's intake form before I talk to her.
Yep, totally. You should totally do that. So yeah, we have a couple topics lined up. If anybody has ideas, you can email us at makingstridespodcast@gmail.com. And Adam, did you want to close with anything?
I don't think so.
Cool.
I mean,
so
if you wanna connect with me, Run Mental, Instagram, Facebook, runmental.com, whatever suits you. Yeah.
Yep. And I'm at upandrunningpt.com or upandrunningpt on Instagram and Facebook. Okay, guys, thanks for joining, and go make some strides.